Esports has everything it needs to rival traditional sports. Incredible skill, intense competition, and a passionate fan base. For younger generations who grew up gaming, the appeal of watching skilled players compete in competitive gaming is as thrilling as watching basketball or football is to older audiences. Yet despite its undeniable growth, esports hasn't fully broken into the mainstream. It lingers on the edge of true cultural relevance, unable to take the leap into the global spotlight. The problem isn't the talent. Esports players are some of the most skilled individuals on the planet. Players who compete at the highest levels in games like Counter-Strike, League of Legends, and Apex Legends display incredible skill and dedication. Watching them execute clutch plays, pulling off seemingly impossible wins, and dominating their opponents can be thrilling. But talent alone isn't enough to make esports a global phenomenon. What's missing, the critical ingredient that traditional sports and entertainment figured out a long time ago, is the human connection. Esports needs personality, rivalries, and drama that capture the audience's imagination. Esports lacks the larger-than-life personalities, the drama, and the rivalries that hook casual viewers and turn them into lifelong fans. Think about the biggest traditional sports or entertainment successes in history. Whether it's the NBA during the Michael Jordan era, the WWE in the late 1990s, or the UFC at its peak with Conor McGregor. What made these sports special wasn't just the competition, it was the personalities. The athletes and entertainers were compelling, unpredictable, and magnetic. They gave audiences something to believe in, something to root for or against. What esports needs is that kind of rare emotional connection between its players and the audience. When that happens, esports will finally go mainstream and truly capture the world's attention. Let's dive in and I'll explain. When you think about traditional sports, one of the key reasons people become fans is because they form connections with the players and teams. They root for their favorites, they develop rivalries with opposing teams, and they get invested in the stories that unfold on and off the field. Esports, for all its brilliance and gameplay, lacks these elements. Most players are incredibly talented, but their personalities aren't showcased in a way that makes fans care about them as individuals. Without someone to root for, or even someone to root against, esports struggles to create the kind of emotional engagement that makes sports like the UFC or football so compelling. It's not just about who wins or loses, it's about the story behind the competition. That's where esports is falling short. Too often, players are interchangeable, their interviews unremarkable, and their interactions devoid of the drama or charisma that hook an audience. This isn't a criticism of their abilities. Many esports players are reserved, humble, and focused on their craft, which is admirable. But the industry needs stars who can do more than just perform in-game. It needs individuals who can entertain, engage, and draw people in with their personality, creating rivalries and storylines that elevate the relevance of the entire sport. This isn't a problem unique to esports. Every sport or entertainment industry that has gone mainstream has faced this challenge. The WWE and the UFC are perfect examples of how larger-than-life personalities can transform a niche interest into a cultural juggernaut. Their success isn't just about the action in the ring or the octagon. It's about the stars who make people care about that action. For esports to achieve its potential, it needs to learn from these examples and build a foundation that goes beyond gameplay. Let's take a closer look at the WWE and the UFC and see how they leverage their stars to create not just entertainment, but cultural moments. Both the WWE and the UFC leaned heavily on larger-than-life personalities, intense rivalries, and unforgettable moments to captivate audiences and break through into the mainstream. What made them successful wasn't just their core talent, but their ability to connect with audiences on a deeply emotional level through their stars and stories. Take WWE during its golden age in the late 90s. Superstars like The Rock, Stone Cold Steve Austin, and Shawn Michaels weren't just athletes, they were magnetic, unpredictable characters who commanded attention. Fans didn't tune in solely to watch wrestling matches, they tuned in because they cared about the personalities and the rivalries. It didn't matter that the outcomes of matches were predetermined, people weren't watching for the competition alone. They were watching for the drama, the storylines, and the pure entertainment that these stars brought to every show. WWE superstars created an emotional connection with fans that extended far beyond the ring. Similarly, the UFC saw its greatest surge in popularity during the rise of Conor McGregor. While the UFC has long boasted incredible athletes and intense fights, it was McGregor's larger-than-life persona that brought the organization to the forefront of mainstream sports. He was brash, confident, and unapologetically himself, and that authenticity resonated with fans. People didn't just watch McGregor fight because he was talented, they watched because he made them feel something. Whether you loved him or hated him, you couldn't ignore him, and that magnetism brought millions of new fans to the sport. These examples highlight an essential truth. Talent alone isn't enough to elevate a sport to the mainstream. What made the WWE and the UFC thrive wasn't just the competition, it was the human element. The drama, the rivalries, and the unpredictability of their stars created an emotional hook that kept fans coming back for more. For esports to reach similar heights, it needs to learn from these examples. It's not about faking drama or scripting outcomes, it's about showcasing the real people behind the screens and amplifying their natural personalities. The WWE and the UFC didn't create The Rock or Conor McGregor out of thin air. They just provided the stage for these stars to shine as themselves. That authenticity is what made them unforgettable, and it's exactly what esports needs to bring its players and competitions to the next level. Let's next talk about why authenticity is so important. One of the vital lessons esports can take from the successes of the WWE and the UFC is the power of authenticity. The stars who made these organizations household names, people like The Rock, Stone Cold Steve Austin, Conor McGregor, weren't playing characters in the traditional sense. They were being themselves, just amplified. Their charisma and personalities weren't manufactured. They were real, raw, and unfiltered. That authenticity resonated with audiences, creating emotional connections that went far beyond the matches themselves. Esports needs the same level of realness to create its own breakout stars and capture the hearts of mainstream audiences. Here's the challenge. You can't fake authenticity. Fans are smarter than they're often given credit for, and they can tell when someone is putting on an act. While scripted storylines worked for WWE because of its entertainment focus, even those stories were grounded in the authentic personalities of its stars. The Rock wasn't pretending to be The Rock, he was The Rock, just turned up to 11. In contrast, if esports were to force players into artificial rivalries or exaggerated personas, it would backfire spectacularly. A manufactured superstar might generate short-term buzz, but the stain of dishonesty would linger, doing more harm than good to the credibility of esports as a whole. Right now, esports is missing that key player, the one who can bring both skill and a captivating personality to the table. For esports to take off, that individual has to be authentic and real. They can't be manufactured because fans will see through it. And it's not about every player being larger than life, but about finding that one person whose personality and charisma are so compelling that it makes them impossible to ignore. Until that person emerges, esports will struggle to create the emotional connection needed to truly captivate a global audience. The lack of marketable personalities in esports doesn't just limit its cultural reach, it also has a massive impact on the financial stability of the industry. Esports has already been trying to solve this problem with money rather than personalities. Over the past decade, venture capitalists poured billions into the industry, expecting it to be the next big thing. But throwing money at a problem doesn't create the cultural impact needed to drive profitability. Most esports teams operate at a deficit, spending far more money than they bring in. Despite the popularity of the games themselves, the teams, the leagues, and the organizations behind them struggle to turn a profit. A significant part of this problem is the absence of superstars who can draw in casual viewers, sell out stadiums, and boost advertising revenue. Without that larger-than-life figure to elevate the sport, esports is stuck relying on a fragmented and niche audience to stay afloat. Esports doesn't need more investors, it needs marketable stars who can bring new fans into the fold. Without them, the financial model remains unsustainable and teams will continue to operate at a loss. The solution isn't more funding, it's finding the right personality to lead the industry into its next phase of growth. And if you question if one person can really make such a drastic difference, look no further than Conor McGregor in the UFC. When McGregor was at his peak, the UFC wasn't just selling out events, they were breaking pay-per-view records and driving global media coverage. His charisma didn't just benefit him, it lifted the entire sport. His opponents earned career-high paydays just by sharing the octagon with him. A similar dynamic could transform esports. If the industry found its equivalent of McGregor or Stone Cold Steve Austin, someone whose name alone could sell tickets and draw headlines, it would create a ripple effect. Events would sell out, sponsorship deals would skyrocket, and the financial struggles of esports teams could be alleviated almost overnight. Now let's talk about the bad news. The road to making esports mainstream is not an easy one. While the games themselves are incredible and the talent is undeniable, the challenge lies in finding the right personalities to bring it all together. Esports needs a figure who can be both a champion in competition and a superstar outside of it. But finding this kind of personality is like catching lightning in a bottle. The ideal esports star would need to be someone who can entertain and engage in interviews, create rivalries that spark interest, and deliver incredible performances in the game itself. This is an incredibly rare combination. Even in traditional sports and entertainment, figures like The Rock, Stone Cold Steve Austin, or Conor McGregor don't come around that often. And when they do, it's not because they were carefully crafted in a boardroom, it's because they were allowed to be themselves, just amplified for the audience. The same thing will have to happen in esports, but the industry must tread carefully. A poorly executed attempt at creating a star could damage the credibility of the entire scene. What makes this even more challenging is that the success of esports doesn't hinge on just one individual. It requires a ripple effect. It's like Roger Bannister breaking the 4-minute mile. Once Bannister proved this was possible, the next person did it themselves only 46 days later. The first breakout esports star will have to pave the way for others by showing the world what's possible. This can all happen, but it will take time, patience, and most importantly, the right set of circumstances. The industry can't rush the process or force it to happen. It needs to nurture talent, give players a platform to shine, and let the right personalities emerge naturally. When that happens, esports will explode into the mainstream and finally fulfill its potential. Esports stands on the brink of something extraordinary. The games, the talent, and the global audience are already there. What's missing is that one spark, that one superstar who can ignite the industry and take it to unimaginable heights. These individuals won't just represent their games, they'll represent an entire movement. Their success won't just be their own, it will lift up the entire esports ecosystem, creating new opportunities for players, teams, and fans alike. Esports doesn't have to be a niche event, and with the right steps, it can become something truly unstoppable. Thank you for taking the time to hear my thoughts on what esports needs to truly thrive and succeed. If you found this video insightful, please like, share, and subscribe. It helps more than you know. And I'd love to hear your perspective in the comments below. What do you think esports needs to break into the mainstream? Your support really does mean everything to me. Thanks again for watching, and remember, it's only GG when you win.